I guess it's time to start unleashing the power of American energy because nobody really likes to fill up their car at a gas station. But it's one of the things that we need. Basically, it's one of the most necessary of evils. Spending on something that we never see, but we depend on it to go about our daily lives. What was once a routine errand has now become a significant strain on family budgets as the price of gas continues to climb with no end in sight. Now, because of this crisis, millions of Americans are facing very difficult choices. Families are questioning whether they can afford to go on a road trip vacation this summer, and farmers are trying to determine if they can operate their equipment normally, and businesses are factoring how increased transportation prices is impacting their livelihoods. The rising price of oil impacts all Americans and the economy upon which we depend. Now these effects also manifest in higher food and product prices, which in turn take yet another chunk of Americans' paychecks. Now, there are myriad issues feeding into the overall gas price crisis. Yet our Democrat colleagues here in Congress, basically, they refuse to see the forest for the trees. Instead, they remain fixated on their favorite boogeyman, big oil. We're looking no further than the legislation of the House Democrats, the ones which they brought to the floor last week in a nutshell. It's basically they're placing American industries squarely in the crosshairs and targeting them for the so-called price gouging, which technically that's what it is. It's price gouging. There was no accountability, there was no accountability in Trump's administration, let alone Biden's either. But Biden's actions toward domestic energy have created a long-term uncertainty for American energy producers, which has stifled the investment in oil drilling. Less drilling results in higher prices, which in turn results in higher gas prices for the consumer. Now, speaking of those American industries, let's not fucking forget about the actual gas stations where you fill up your goddamn car. Oil companies are one thing, but Democrats are saying that they also plan to investigate wholesalers and retailers. More than 95% of the gas stations in the U.S. are locally owned franchises, but this is not the so-called big oil that the Democrats are demonizing, but further punishing these industries through regulatory crackdowns. The American consumers will continue feeling the sting at the gas pump. Ultimately, the Democratic talking points are a Hail Mary attempt to save face after months of inflation that started under Trump's administration, then it continued into Biden's. Now, from the start, Biden's administration has attacked American energy production by halting oil and gas leasing on federal lands and water. And they closed down the pipeline because the pipeline doesn't really cause inflation, but not just that, the pipeline was leaking, and that's why they closed it. And it's also threatening the producers with increased regulations and promising to ban all oil and gas leasing on the campaign trail. Now, we basically warned since the beginning that this approach would cause prices to skyrocket, but in fact, gasoline prices have increased every month. But only because of it's worldwide, so it's not just us out here. Now attempting to address these failed policies, the President Biden's administration has depleted certain reserves and put thousands of American energy employees out of work. Technically, that's not really what happened, but all while begging OPEC plus countries and foreign dictators to bail out of a mess that Trump created. Now, the Biden administration and congressional Democrats are attacking the gasoline wholesalers and retailers at a time when China is overtaking the U.S. in the oil refining capacity. Now, here's the hard truth that Biden does not want to admit. If we're not producing and refining oil and natural gas here at home, we are importing it from somewhere else. As much as we support an all of the above energy approach that includes renewable resources, we simply cannot power our transportation system on electricity, much less New York City on solar panels and wind turbines without the baseload energy backing them up. Anyone who says otherwise is fucking lying to you. Plus, the more this administration threatens U.S. producers, which is what Trump is known for doing, the more they embolden and help countries like China and Russia. That's what Trump did. Wow. So technically, you're blaming Biden's administration when this is Trump's. Okay. This is anything but environmentally friendly, not to mention it will jeopardize our own energy and national security. Now, while the Now, while our Democrat colleagues in Congress have finally woken up to the energy crisis, their solutions are still completely ineffective. Yeah, we already knew that that Trump's policies were ineffective. They will willfully ignore facts and data to blame a scapegoat. Yeah, that's what Trump did. Okay. Their proposals will raise the cost of production energy at home, which is what Trump did, and Americans will pay the price. Yeah, we're paying the price because of Trump's shitty policies. Meanwhile, our Republican colleagues have introduced a host of bills. Yeah, that's not really them that did that. That was Democrats that did. It, Even though this guy must be blowing Trump, so anyway, and he reversed it. He basically the guy meant to say that the Democrat colleagues have introduced a host of bills that will unleash the power of domestic energy, empowering U.S. industries to do what they do best and show the world how to produce energy cleaner, safer, and cheaper than ever before. And there's absolutely no reason you should have to hold your breath when checking your receipt at the gas pump. We have every available resource right here in the U.S. And we're gonna call on congressional congressional Republicans in this administration to stop demonizing American industries and instead find ways to lead, follow, or get out of the way so we can fucking thrive. Yeah, Republicans, step aside so that we can thrive. So if you like the video, give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. Also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. And if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube. And just for little as a few bucks a month, your donation can help go a long way, and thanks for listening.